Welcome to this 10-minute tutorial. These videos are designed to help you as church leaders think through some of the issues related to mission where your local church is concerned, so that you might engage more fully in terms of the community. One of the things that we've recognised is that in doing the Thought for the Weeks, 3 minutes is no time at all to explore some of the subjects that we're raising. And so in these 10-minute tutorials, we're looking to go deeper and we're looking to actually engage more. If you like the video, then please feel free to like it or dislike it, to share it with others, and maybe you consider subscribing, because we're producing videos like this pretty much on a monthly basis. Now let's get started. In this particular video, we're talking about the 5 lessons that we've learned as a church where pub church is concerned. We hope you find it helpful. In this video, I want to share the 5 lessons that we've learnt about missional engagement through pub church. The first thing you need to think about before you start where pub church is concerned is to answer the question, who is your target audience? Is the goal to get your congregation out of their comfort zone and into the community, which is a laudable goal. It's something that we all need to seek to do, because there's a tendency in church to stay within the confines of what is familiar, to stay in the confines of the building. Now that was our goal when we began, and to be honest, we succeeded. It was great that we managed to get people out of the building and across the road. The truth is that there was a mental blockage in the church where across the road was concerned. It was like going into no man's land. It was like going into a place and a space that was off limits because it didn't reflect the demographic of the church itself. And to get the congregation to actually step out and to go into the local pub was a huge step for us and really significant. It was one of those pubs that on a Friday night the police would crash in and arrest somebody and drive away again. It wasn't a particularly nice pub, and as a consequence I think there was a lot of fear in the minds of the congregation where going across the road was concerned, and we managed to break that, and that was a good thing. But we also need to ask, is our target audience to get the congregation to invite their friends to something that may be a little more familiar than actually attending a church service or an event within the building? And if that's true, then that's a great place to start. Maybe it's the compromise position where your church is concerned. And you know, in doing so, we found that we were sort of broadly appealing to 3 groups: to the congregation themselves, to their friends, and to some of the clientele in the context of the pub. But the danger, of course, in terms of trying to target too many people is that you manage to hit nobody. The third thing you need to ask is, are you trying to engage with those who will never darken the doorsteps of the church, but are regular and frequent residents almost in the pub? If that's the case, then that is obviously a really important thing for us to seek to do. If that's your goal, then you really need to start out with that, because there are the other 2 will not necessarily get what you're trying to do and will not necessarily want to come to something that might appeal to the regulars that are there already. I think, if I'm honest, that was our second biggest mistake. We simply wanted to get the congregation out of the building, and we'd hoped that along the way we might encourage them to invite their friends and engage with the regulars. And to be honest, it didn't work. And now we're having to start over. But that's okay, because actually we've learnt a huge amount in the process along the way. The second thing that we've learnt is, if you're going to engage with the regulars in the pub, then you need to regularly frequent the pub at the same time that they do. In other words, we need to become a regular in order to reach the regulars. And there's something about that that smacks of incarnation and a desire to engage with people as Jesus sought to engage with us. We've discovered that our local pub actually contains 3 pretty distinct communities, and we've needed to think that through. There's the lunchtime crew, and they tend to be people that are a little older, they tend to be people who are a little isolated, they tend to be people who are a little lonely. They go into the pub because they've got nowhere else to go, and they tend to sit on separate tables in splendid isolation, either eating their lunch or making a pint last as long as possible. Now that's a legitimate subculture that we would seek and want to reach. And then there's the tea time crew, those that tend to pop into pub on the way home from work. And they are a distinct community. They tend to actually meet with friends, they tend to chat for an hour or so, and then they go home for their tea. And then there's those that gather later in the evening. Now they tend to be those who are either coming for entertainment, or those who are hardened drinkers, or those who are just out to have fun and don't necessarily want to engage in conversation with complete strangers. We found that there are these three audiences, not just one audience, the regulars, and you need to think about that. We need to be realistic and recognise that we weren't going to reach all three, not in the same way anyway. And so we're thinking about picking a regular lunchtime where we will go in and begin to engage in relationship with those that gather at that time. It probably is going to be about a Wednesday, and we'll go in for lunch and we'll get known and we'll begin to have regular conversations, and in that way we'll begin to engage with those who would probably never darken the doorsteps of church. Although what we're finding is that actually they're not unsympathetic and they're willing to have spiritual conversations. The second group are those who pop in for a drink after work, and again, if we're going to engage with the regulars, we need to think about becoming a regular. And then we're also thinking about doing events once a month that will engage with those who come that little bit later. So what we're doing is we're effectively engaging in three ways. We're looking to develop three strategies, and that's something that's important to consider. The third thing that I think we've learnt, and this is probably the most important lesson that we've learnt along the way, is to build relationship with the management. Now that's been our biggest success, and also, if we're honest, our biggest failure. We started by letting the assistant manager use our car park because he had nowhere else to park the car. The parking around us is absolutely terrible, and when you're getting out of work at 2 o'clock in the morning, you need to know that you can get to your car safely and get in it and drive away as quickly as possible. And so that was a real boon to him and a real blessing, and something that we were glad to do. And then we've discovered that over the course of the years we've needed to borrow things and they've been willing to loan them to us, or they've needed to borrow things and we've been willing to loan them to them, and we've responded to the request that they've made. One of the things that the management wants to do in the pub that's opposite us is they want to raise the tone of the clientele, and they saw us as a means to do that, to actually change the atmosphere. And have told us on a number of occasions that we've actually succeeded in doing that whenever we frequented the pub. And so when they invited us to come and do a Christmas carol sing, we didn't say no. We grabbed the opportunity with both hands, and we went in and we had a lot of fun, and really began to engage with them and with the clientele that came on that occasion. We've also been cheeky. We've asked them if we could do things free of charge in the pub, and they were open to that possibility and willing to let us have the lounge bar whenever we want it, if the truth be known. Now, whilst we built a great relationship, they didn't really understand what it was that we were trying to do. We didn't ever sit down and really explain it to them fully, and that's been really unhelpful. Whenever we've gone in and done pub church, what they've tended to do is see us as a private function, and they put notices on the doors to keep people out, and that's been really unhelpful. It's deterred people from engaging with us in meaningful ways. And it's also been the case that the management, whilst welcoming us in, have sort of kept us at arm's length. They've been a little suspicious of what it is that we're seeking to do. The fourth thing that we've learnt is only use those acts that get what you are trying to do. You see, when we set up pub church, we didn't try and put a service into the pub because that would have been crass. What we've tried to do is to engage with the regulars by putting in Christian acts. We've had musicians come in, we've had artists come in, we've had magicians come in, we've had people come in that have a story to tell, but also an act to perform in order that we might engage. Now that's been with varying success. Some of our acts have been fantastic. They really get what we're trying to do and they know not to speak the churchy language. But the problem is that some of them seem to think that they're coming into a Christian audience, they're coming into a Christian service, and they have done it so badly, it has been embarrassing, and it's had a detrimental effect in terms of what we've been seeking to do. Sadly, our biggest name artist did us the most damage, principally because they were a well-known name, they were a public figure, and they drew the biggest audience of the regulars that we actually have ever had. Unfortunately, they then went on to speak Christian speak, they used Christian songs, they didn't do what we expected and had primed them to do. And that was incredibly unhelpful and put us back, if the truth be known, in terms of our relationship both with the management and the clientele considerably. And it's an important thing to realise. It's better to do it less often and get the right people, even though they may cost you more, than to actually do it regularly and get the wrong people and do something that is embarrassing. The fifth lesson I think we've learned is not to be too churchy. The problem with Christians is often they cannot remember what it was like to be a non-Christian, and therefore they talk this weird jargon and they speak in a way and sometimes even look in a way completely irrelevant to those that we are seeking to reach. You almost need to handpick those who are going to be part of the core audience, the core team of those who remember what it was like before they came to faith, and that's really important. And when you're standing at the front and you're doing presentation, don't use words like bless, don't use words like share, don't use words like testimony, because nobody understands what it is that you're seeking to say. Use the common language that people would tend to use. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting that you swear, I'm not suggesting that you go into the pub and you drink alcohol necessarily. It is important that you are yourself, but it's important also that you recognise the context in which we're seeking to communicate. The final thing I want to say is that we thought that those 3 mistakes that we've made had killed pub church. We weren't getting to do what it was that we wanted to do, so we were ready to close it down. If the horse is dead, dismount. You need to bite the bullet and not just carry on something for the sake of carrying something on. In fact, we went into the pub to tell the manager that's what we were going to do. We were going to close pub church down. And what happened surprised us. He refused to let us do so. Not because it was making money, but because, and these are my words, not his, I believe in pub church. I like what you're trying to do. I just think you're going about it the wrong way. And it was those last few words that made us sit up and take notice. He then gave us 3 pieces of advice. The first one was this: don't call it pub church. Why on earth call it church when it isn't? Because actually that's one of the things that is going to put off our regular clientele. So when we asked him what it is we should call it, he said to us, well, call it anything other than pub church. In fact, why do you have to call it anything at all? Why not focus it upon the specifics of the event itself? The second thing he said to us is don't do it on a Sunday, because that's not when our regulars generally tend to come in. That tends to be a dead time when you're not going to mix it up, you're not going to rub shoulders with those that you're seeking to engage with. In fact, they suggested a Thursday night, and I'll explain the reason why in a moment. And then the third thing they said is don't do music. They are a pub that is known for doing live music 5 nights a week. Why on earth would you want to do something that we already do and do better than you? So when we asked them what they thought we should do, they said get a reputation for doing something that we are not doing, something that will engage and something that will appeal. And what they suggested is a comedy night. Why don't you as the church sponsor a comedy night on a Thursday night? Now they said if you were to do that once a month, then we would support you in that. We prepare the room because we know how to do that. We'd provide a buffet free of charge for those who come in, and we would help you in terms of the promotion of that event, because it adds something to the program that we are already offering. Now that was really interesting, and we are beginning to think about that. And you know, the thing that I've discovered is there are so many Christian comedians out there that it isn't difficult to find a program of events that will actually help us to engage with a new clientele. The important thing, obviously, is that the comedians have to actually be funny. The problem so often is that Christian comedians are only funny to Christians because all the jokes are sort of inside the church jokes. And so we're taking some time to work out who the people are that are going to be able to help us the most. So that's what we're planning to do in 2019, probably starting around September. And what I'll do is I'll do an update on this video and tell you how it's going and what we're learning along the way. Hope you found this video helpful, and if you have, then press that like button and give us the thumbs up. If you haven't liked it, then please tell us how and why, because we're wanting to learn. If you've got any comments or any lessons that you've learned where Pub Church is concerned, we would love to hear them, and those that watch this video would love to see them, so pop them in the comments below. Don't forget to have a look in the show notes because we put all sorts of information that will help you as you begin to think about engaging in Pub Church for yourself. Thanks for watching,